You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
It only takes one step, twist, or crunch to know something doesn't feel right. Essentia Health's orthopedic and sports medicine team gets you back to doing what you love with commitment, resilience, intention. We're here to keep you moving forward. Visit essentiahealth.org to learn more about orthopedics and sports medicine, like nowhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the Duluth News Tribune.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
This week on the podcast, we're joined by a redshirt sophomore. She's in her third year with the UMD women's hockey team. Welcome to the podcast, Mary Kate O'Brien.
Thank you for having me.
I was going to say, I never actually use your full name. It's usually just MK, or in my notes, I even just write MKO and everything like that. I love all the abbreviations I can use for this team right now with Clara and Nina and everything like that. Makes shorthand great. But MK, we got you on the podcast this week. The Bulldogs are heading to the WCHA Final Faceoff to take on Ohio State at 1 p.m. on Friday at Ritter Arena in Minneapolis. The winner advances to face either Wisconsin or Minnesota for the WCHA Championship at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Close call for the Gophers getting into the Final Faceoff at their home rink there. Wasn't sure that was going to happen or not. You guys, not a close call at all. You swept St. Cloud State last week 5-0 and 2-0 in the quarterfinals to not only advance to the league semis, but it looks like, I'm going to knock on wood here. This is the one time Wyatt's going to allow me, I hope, to hit the table on this podcast. Knock on wood. We think, I'm going to go like 99% that you guys are a lock for the NCAA tournament. Everything really fell your guys' way this weekend. How's the team? How's everyone feeling?
I think we're feeling really good. You know, going into these games, what was emphasized to us is to focus on what we can control, because in this time of year with the tournament and the selection process, there's a lot of things that aren't in our control and that can cause a lot of different worries for people. But our main concern was taking care of St. Cloud, and I think we did that. And to do it in 2 games was huge. So we put ourselves in a great position from what we can control. And then, you know, looking at the outsider perspective, I think the hockey gods kind of took care of a few other things. So the vibes are really good in our group right now. And to be going into this weekend feeling comfortable in where we are is huge.
Someone wrote that this was going to be a really tight series and for sure go to 3 games. I mean, you guys defensively held up your end of the bargain. Ev and Haley, my God, 4 games now? St. Cloud hasn't scored a goal on you guys. Those 2 were ridiculous. 5-0 and 2-0. Like, what was the key to just, I'm not going to say it's a breeze. It looked easy a little bit from the outside, but what was the key? Was it just focusing on St. Cloud and not worrying about everything else, letting people like reporters and podcasters worry about what the heck's going on the outside?
Yeah, I think it really was just the focus on what was right in front of us, and going into it like a whole week of practice, focusing on just that and focusing on ourselves, honestly. Focusing on our style of play and what we wanted to focus on going into the weekend was huge. And, you know, it's hard to lose hockey games when you're not giving up any goals. So that was awesome. And for us to find our offensive stride right at an awesome time is good for us, obviously.
We promised not to spend the whole podcast talking about this moment, but you were one of the people that addressed it at the end of the Minnesota series. You addressed it with the media this week. And just for people who didn't see that make its rounds, because now that you've gone on and swept St. Cloud, a team that kind of gave you some troubles in the regular season, both at their place and in Duluth, is that a moment and the way that it was handled? Do you think that can be kind of a galvanizing thing? Matt and I and reporters and media members, I think we always search for galvanizing moments and moments that can propel a team further. But the way that you reacted both at the end of the game in Minnesota and then came back and swept St. Cloud, do you think that kind of brought the group as close as you are, even closer together going into a pretty critical stretch run of the playoffs here?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we always talk about in our group is that during times of adversity, to squeeze each other tighter, not to pull ourselves apart. And I think like a lot of teams that we play against, when things get rough, sometimes there's some clashing and they are bickering on the ice and stuff like that. And that's something that we never do. You know, in times of adversity, we hold each other tighter and we support each other. So to bounce back after the Gophers and that weekend and taking the good from that weekend and bringing it into St. Cloud is huge. And I really think we're finding our stride at the perfect time of the year.
You get to see that team again now in the playoffs, and so hopefully. But
wow, you're counting out the Badgers already.
No. But when you now move on to the final face-off, and you maybe get to see that team again, whether it's in this tournament or in the NCAA tournament, do you look forward to that? I mean, and maybe you've got the same kind of things going on with Ohio State and Wisconsin teams that you could face as well. Wisconsin for sure, but. Do you hold on to that? Do you keep the receipts from moments like that or is it kind of flushed and you're moving on?
I would say for the most part it's flushed or at least pocketed for maybe a later time. But I think right now, like the most important thing is focusing on Ohio State and focusing on just what's right in front of us, not getting too much of a big picture mindset, because it's hard to stay present when you think about things like that, especially if you're thinking, backwards and you're thinking of things that happened before. So, when we do think of that weekend, we think of the good things that came from our play. And then right now our main focus is those Buckeyes. So we're staying what's right in front of us. That's what we're focused on right now.
MK, let's talk about you. Let's get to know you on the podcast here. You have the distinction of being the first known, I always like to throw this known in there because all of a sudden we'll get an email from someone saying that, what about this person? You have the distinction of being the first known Massachusetts native to play for the Bulldogs. And I'm actually pretty confident because if that fact is wrong, it's Laura Bellamy's fault. She's the one who told me it. But because it came from Lou, I'm 99.9% sure that that's right. You're the first Massachusetts native to play for the Bulldogs in 25 years, which is kind of crazy. How did you end up at UMD and not maybe playing where most kids from your state go in the ECAC or Hockey East or something?
Yeah. And, to be honest, during my process, that was really the only schools I was looking at originally was ECAC and Hockey East. And that was while I was at my first prep school. So I did 2 years at Williston Northampton School, and that's in East Hampton, Massachusetts. So
which is where in relation to Boston?
It's like 30 minutes from my hometown. So really like right in my backyard still. But it was after that I went to Selects Academy, now BK Selects in Rochester, New York. So when I made that transition to go to that school, it was when I kind of broadened my recruiting process, was more open to things beyond my backyard. And so that was when I started to talk to more WCHA teams, and UMD specifically was really the only one that I had serious conversations with. And what helped a lot was that Coach Mora is from Massachusetts too. So being able to bond with that and, having conversations and feeling that sense of comfort, knowing that if I were to go beyond my home state, that I wouldn't be alone in it, was huge. And what's always so funny is that I feel that, like you said, New Englanders, Massachusetts natives usually go to Massachusetts schools or ECAC schools, and then Minnesotans usually go to Minnesota schools. So it's funny that I feel like I kind of crossed the boundaries there, and but I've really found a second home here, and I really do feel truly comfortable here, and it's been awesome. And to go beyond my comfort zone and meet new people has been awesome for me.
You grew up near, you mentioned Massachusetts kids going to Massachusetts schools. Anyone that people are like, oh, is that really true in Miracle, the Massachusetts-Minnesota rivalry in hockey? Yes, it is. But you grew up near UMass Amherst, and there's UMass Lowell, the two public schools in your state. They don't have women's hockey. Like that's crazy to me. We talk a lot on this podcast about Michigan not having women's hockey, but out in your neighborhood, they're the only two Hockey East schools without it. Like, would you have considered playing for either of those schools? Like, if they had sponsored the sport, or for you, did you really kind of want to, get away from home and experience something new?
I would have absolutely considered it. I would say probably more so UMass Amherst because it's just closer. I've been to men's hockey games there before. When I played soccer, my soccer games used to be at UMass Amherst. But yeah, and like I would just say family is so important to me, and all of my family is within like I would say 15 minutes of me for the most part. So for having the ability to like have more people be able to come to my games, and I'm really fortunate now. My family is at like every weekend, like my parents and stuff. But to my grandparents would be there all the time if I played closer to home. So that would definitely be something that I considered, but I am really happy with my decision to open my door to other things and, kind of give myself the opportunity to see new schools that I wouldn't have before.
How would you compare the college hockey landscapes from East Coast to Minnesota? I mean, you can't compare, obviously, women's hockey at Amherst and Lowell, but you went to some men's games there, men's games from there to here, women's games that you were able to follow and attend when you were a kid. How would you compare it from where you grew up to here in Duluth?
I would say like the support is pretty similar between both places. Massachusetts and Minnesota, I would say, are the two hockey states of the country. There's Michigan in there too, obviously, but the support has been awesome. I will say like even the women's support too in Massachusetts is growing. I think that it was already there in Minnesota, but with just like high school sports in the state tournament, that still wows me. But yeah, I would say it's really, really similar in that aspect. And something that I've just been so grateful for is the community that we have here in Duluth. It's been awesome to see like season ticket holders and stuff for women's games. I wouldn't have thought that was really like a thing before coming here. So yeah, I would say just like overall, they're pretty similar.
You mentioned your hometown. Tell us about it. Wilbraham, is that right? Tell us about Wilbraham. What's that like?
Wilbraham, it's more towards western Massachusetts, like near Springfield, like a notable school near there, like UMass Amherst or AIC. They had a little bit of a Cinderella story in the tournament a few years ago now, but it's more of like a suburb outside of Springfield, which is the city. Yeah, I would say like when I was growing up, there wasn't a ton of women's hockey opportunities. So I played with the boys up until high school, basically. So that was a great opportunity for me to grow my game and to push myself. My brother, I played with him a little bit. He's 2 years older than me, so that was another challenge. But yeah, like I said, my family's all from around that area. Both of my parents are from Springfield, Mass. Basically all of my family's home rooted there, so we all are very close. But yeah, it's a really like a small town vibe.
So you're the adventurous one getting out and moving away here.
Yeah.
You said growing up playing boys hockey, the physicality, has that helped you having that experience playing a physical game, then coming to the WCHA where it also borders on sometimes, especially if you ask some of the ECAC teams out there, they'd say this is a full check league sometimes. But the physicality of the WCHA, did that help growing up playing some boys hockey?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually played a year of checking. So like obviously it was physically challenging before that, but I played a year of checking in 8th grade, and having that experience, knowing how to take hits and to give hits, clean hits, is huge, especially now where the game is getting more physical. I know that the fans want it to get more and more physical, and if you look at the PWHL, I mean, these girls are lighting each other up. So you hope that it's going to be clean and that people know how to take hits. But I think it definitely has helped me. I'm not necessarily a very tall individual, so just to know how to brace for contact and to stay low has been huge, especially in the WCHA where it's a battle every weekend.
And then when in high school did you go to the Selects program in New York?
Yeah, I did 2 years originally at my first prep school, and then repeated my sophomore year and went to Selects Academy.
So the 3 years total. Is that all away from home? Your family didn't come with you? Is that kind of like a boarding school in New York, so to speak?
Yeah. Yep. So it's actually really cool. It's one building, and there are day students that aren't a part of the hockey program, and then there's the women's hockey program, and they have a boys program now, but when I first went there wasn't a boys program, and we live on the 3rd floor of the building, so we just walk downstairs to get to class. So it was really cool. We had like our gym was upstairs and our shooting room was all the way in the basement. So it was funny, like you could walk from the shooting room to like the school cafeteria. So it was really cool. We had everything kind of in that one place.
You mentioned it was your time at the selects program when the door kind of opened to maybe some WCHA teams. Was that because now at the selects program teams were finding you and watching you, or was that because you yourself got a little bit more comfortable with the idea of being away from home and not wanting to maybe explore some of those schools in Massachusetts?
I would say a little bit of both. At selects, we would travel all over the place to play in tournaments. Like we could go to Canada, or we would go to just like other states too for these tournaments, and they were really big recruiting hubs. So there were so many different schools there. But also I would say just like being around other high-end players at the time and seeing, where they were going, where they were pursuing was also big. Like, for example, my first year at selects, my roommate was Caroline Harvey, who is well known nowadays.
Who's that?
But yeah. And she had been committed to Wisconsin already. And, just to see that and be around other people who were committed to other places beyond Hockey East, that was what kind of was like got me thinking like, oh, like I can do that too. So yes, being seen by more schools at these tournaments, but also me being like, okay, like I can look beyond what I'm just comfortable with and what I know most.
What was that like at a young age? The Minnesota model here is, high school hockey is huge. Girls coming up through the Minnesota system, youth hockey, play for their high school and then go to college. It kind of seems like for you out east, it's a little similar to what the men go through, which is here in Minnesota, they go to high school, but then they're going to go to juniors. You kind of went to junior hockey just earlier in your life. How old were you when you went to? And that's Bishop Kearney Selects program in Rochester. And it's a huge program. Some notable players. I'll throw out a name. Bulldog recruit Ray Mayer is coming here in the future. Did you play? Was one of the Eden sisters from Wisconsin also? Is she another BK Selects player?
Edwards, yeah, Layla.
Layla Edwards. Okay, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yes.
So huge program. But it's almost like a junior hockey program. But how old were you when you first went there?
16.
16. So what's that like, moving away at 16? The way you describe it, it's great having all that hockey right there. You're living hockey every day. But moving away from home and your family, what's that like?
Honestly, like I was never really too nervous because I knew that I was going to be busy all the time. I really did take it in stride, and being like getting there at 16, like there were some girls there that were coming in 8th grade. So being a little bit older, not the oldest one there, but being a little older, I was just like, all right, this is my dream. This is hockey in school, and that's it. So I was just more than excited. Like being farther away from my family was a bit of an adjustment, but it was only like 4.5 hours of a drive. So it wasn't too far. I mean, I didn't really necessarily get to go home at all, but they were coming to some tournaments and whatnot. So I got to see them here and there, but I really was just like immersing myself in everything that it was, which was hockey in school and being around my friends every single day. So it really was a lot of fun for me.
Your freshman season here, I want to talk a little bit about that. Tough year for you because you go through injury, but you also play with some exceptional players, and the program kind of starts on this run where it looks like you guys are now heading to, again, knock on wood, 4th straight NCAA tournament. First off, the injury. Tell us what happened there, because it was 7 games into the season you were done, right?
Yeah. So it was a shoulder injury, and it's I had my left shoulder done my junior year of high school, and I had started to have some problems with my right shoulder coming into college, but nothing where I thought that it was really worth having an operation done. I was dealing with shoulder dislocations and labrum issues, and since I was having them in both shoulders, there was probably some kind of predisposition to loose shoulders, basically laxity in the joints, but so it was actually just a fluke thing in practice. We were just doing a physical drill, and I had gotten hit, and my shoulder came out, and I kind of made the decision at that time where it was probably in my best interest for the longevity of my career to to have the operation done at that time and to redshirt that year. I think like with the status of our team and how experienced it was for me, like I was in the lineup, but not making as much of an impact as, you know, other people in that lineup just because of how experienced we were. So I talked to the coaches and I said, what are your thoughts on me having this surgery? I think it's in my best interest because if I don't have it now, I'm probably going to need it more desperately later on in my college career. And I think it's better for me to have it now as a freshman than for me to need it when I'm a junior or a senior or whatever it may be. So it was just a collective decision to have that surgery. So yeah, then I just ended up getting it done over Christmas break and redshirting that year.
That's so you were advocating for yourself there. I'm guessing you didn't get a lot of pushback from the coaches, like, "Ooh, MK for another year." That's great. Like, what gives you that courage to advocate for yourself at that age?
Yeah, I think having the experience of the first shoulder and having it done, like at this point, it wasn't my first rodeo, and I knew my body and what it was going to have to go through. And I just was very honest with the coaches and saying that, you know, if I don't get it done now, I'm going to need to get it done eventually. So it's almost like if not now, it's going to happen, you know, down the line at some point. And the coaches were so supportive of it. They just wanted me to be healthy and to take care of myself. So they were, you know, my number one supporters besides my family in that decision. So to have that support too was huge because it's obviously a hard decision to make. Like, I didn't want to have to sit out a whole year and, you know, to be sidelined and to have a serious operation like that. But it took a lot of maturity to make that decision just for a big picture perspective.
So you said two things in the last couple of answers. The first was impact, and the second just now was maturity. And so you're having a heck of an impact now as a sophomore on this season, but age-wise, you should be a senior. Right? You said you doubled up as a sophomore in high school and then you had a redshirt season in college. So do those 2 extra years of in high school you got to play, here in college you had to rehab from that injury, but did the 2 extra years just of life experience and being 2 years older help you? Do you feel like you're more advanced at this level? Just on the line chart, you're listed as a sophomore, but really you're kind of a veteran of sorts just in life in that locker room.
Yeah, I think so. I think like, you know, when I look at my teammates, I just see peers. Like I don't really see an age or anything, but I do think like having those 2 extra buffer years has been huge for me, just like in terms of dealing with college and dealing with life in general. So I would say yes, it's helped a lot, and I'm really grateful because, you know, I always joke about it with my family when they're like chirping me about being 21 and a sophomore right now, and I'm like, well, I'm not in any rush. College is the best years of your life, and why would I want to rush out the door? So I'm really grateful to be where I am, and yeah, I do think that being a little bit older for my year has been huge.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more with MK. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Greetings from Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity, because here you will find curiosities. Whether it's a look inside the Northern Rail Train Car Inn or an introduction to Duluth's musical roboticist, Robot Rickshaw, we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. Each week, I'm joined by my fellow reporters who share the unique and fascinating stories that they discover while exploring the Northland. You can find new episodes of the Northlandia podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join us along this journey and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.
Hi, I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Explore Superior and Douglas County history with me on Archive Dive, a monthly podcast available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. They're proud to be the team physicians for the UMD Bulldogs and provide sports medicine care to more than 25,000 student athletes in the community to ensure they can compete at the highest level while protecting their long-term health and athletic futures. Thanks to Essentia Health for their support of the Bulldog Insider podcast. I'm Matt Wellens, along with my co-host Zach Schneider, and our guest this week, Mary Kate O'Brien. One kind of last thing before we get into a little game here. We were talking about that freshman season that you had, and you decide to get the shoulder surgery. Man, shoulder surgeries have been popular, I feel like, at UMD in recent years here. But we talked about, the lineup, the team at that time had some heavy hitters. Looking back there, you got Emma Soderberg. You got to play how many years you got to play 1 year with Ashton?
Yeah.
Ashton Bell? She wasn't there your freshman year, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right. She was off doing her little summer abroad or her year abroad. You got a hockey humanitarian award winner in Gabby Hughes. That's right. Anna Klein is there. Elizabeth Jaguar. What did you learn from those players? Maybe not necessarily being on the ice with them every day, but just seeing them in the locker room and on campus and in the community and such. What did you learn from that group?
I honestly just learned so much about being a Bulldog. Like, a lot of those girls came into the program when it wasn't a winning program yet. And so to help build that foundation of getting this program to where it is today, that was the main thing that I learned. And just knowing that where they started is a lot different than where I'm starting now, and looking back and being grateful for the time and effort that they had put into the program. And also just being able to watch them on the ice, tactically, I got to learn so many different things, getting to see Elizabeth Jaguar make some of the plays that she did, just really appreciating the poise she had with the puck, or just Gabby, being so sound defensively as well as offensively, and being relied on as a top penalty killer and also a top power play player. I think those were just some of the big things that I learned from a group like that.
We had, from the men's team, Luke Lohheit and Quinn Olson on here a couple weeks ago, and they also kind of talked about what they learned from playing with the players from the back-to-back championship teams. How important is it to kind of soak in when you're playing with players like that? How important is that for you and everyone else when you're in hockey, to learn from players like that?
It's so important. One of the things that I pride myself on being is a student of the game, and it's extra important when you're not on the ice playing the game, that you're watching and that you're learning everything just from seeing things and listening to things. I would attend every video session still, and I would want to listen to everything that the coaches were saying in the huddles and stuff while I was on the bench watching practice. So not only are you watching and learning, but you have to be listening. And even though you're not necessarily in the game or in the practice, you still have to mentally be there too in order to be ready, in the next year it was for me, but just whenever your name's called, to make sure that you're in the know of what is expected of you.
It's been talked about, I think, by a couple of people this year, more specifically than I remember in years past, about how UMD practices and how it prepares, and that being talked about in the recruiting process. Was that a big selling point when you made your visit, or when you talked with coaches about what the process looks like? I mean, I think we focus a lot on when UMD recruits, right? You come here, you have a chance to win a national championship. But for players and their development, is it just as much what you're talking about, the chance to be in video, the chance to do this, do that? Was that kind of a selling point for you to leave home and come to Duluth?
Yeah, for sure. I would say just knowing that for me personally, I didn't want to go somewhere where I was too comfortable and I wasn't being pushed every single day. And knowing that you're going to go to a top program in the country and a top league in the country, yeah, you're going to get challenged in games, but you need to be challenged in practice too. And you need to be pushed every single day, every single drill, because that's what makes you better. And also having the staff on board that is breaking down video and really gets into the specifics, which is something that I love. I'm a numbers person, a stats person, a very detail oriented person. So I love stuff like that. So yeah, that's a huge selling point for me, is that we really focus on the details of things.
All right, we're going to get into a game here to close out the episode. It's called Start, Bench, Cut. I'll retire this one after the year, Zach. We'll come up with a new game for next season. Your starter is the star. You're going to bench who you're keeping on the team for later. The cut, getting rid of, self-explanatory. We'll start with another hot topic between Minnesotans and Massachusetts. What is it, MK?
Massholes.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Been in Duluth long enough.
She is converted to Minnesota. Speaking of being in Minnesota for a while, when I hear Maura, Coach Kroll, do her press conferences, she has adopted many Minnesotan. The "oh yeah" comes up a lot with her. We'll see if she calls me out now for that. If she said she was caught up on episodes, we'll see if she asks me about that. She's starting to inherit a Minnesota accents and sayings as well. But again, the hot topic: coffee, Dunkin', Caribou, and Starbucks.
All right. I would say I'm starting Dunkin'.
You're still staying loyal to Dunkin'.
Yes,
yeah.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Price and also a more versatile menu. I think their food is better than the other two. So I'm not just thinking drinks, I'm thinking food as well. And I am going to bench Caribou and cut Starbucks. I have really been off the Starbucks train recently, and I've been really into Caribou. I will say I haven't gone to Dunkin' as much as I would like to, just because it's a little bit longer of a drive.
Not a friendly location to
Exactly.
the college kids.
Exactly. So that's my final answer.
How hot of a topic is this in your locker room? These three, because I know your program's very passionate about coffee. We mentioned Ashton Bell and Emma Soderberg. I think they toured every local coffee shop in the Twin Ports area here during their time. How big of a debate topic is that coffee?
I would say it's pretty big. It's always fun to see who brings what to the rink for game days. You have your Caribou clan, and you also have your Starbucks crew, but nobody brings Dunkin' anymore. I think that is mostly location wise, but yeah, I will say I am a loyal member to the Caribou clan now. But
you're part of the Caribou clan.
Yes, that doesn't stop me from going to Starbucks maybe on my way to class or something, but I will say, given the choice, I will pick Caribou.
I think Laura Bellamy was also still stayed loyal from all her years at Harvard there to Dunkin' as well. WCHA rivals: Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Minnesota.
Okay, is this for like overall experience? Is this like like favorite team to play, or is it just up to my interpretation?
We'll leave it up to your interpretation.
Okay. I'm gonna start Wisconsin. I'm going to bench the Gophers and cut Ohio State.
Cut Ohio State. Is this experience for you?
I would say, yeah. LeBon is my favorite away rink to play in. I also like have a lot of friends on the team, which is very fun. Friendly competition is I don't know, it just makes it better.
You got your former BK Selects teammates over there for
exactly,
you.
Yeah. And then I would just say that the history of the rivalry with the Gophers is huge. It's fun, it's emotional playing them. But, you know, I think these past few years we've also developed a good rivalry with Ohio State too. So unfortunately they had to be cut just for like overall experience wise. But if I could put two on the bench, I would have.
For a non-Minnesotan, how quickly does that rivalry, how quickly are you thrust into that rivalry with a Minnesota or a Wisconsin when you come to UMD? Because you probably knew very little about that when you got here. But now I feel like as soon as you put on the jersey, you have to dislike those programs, right?
Yeah, it's basically part of the orientation, the Bulldog orientation. Yeah, just like learning from the girls that are, you know, the Minnesotans, it's right away you learn that there is no love between those two teams. And it's funny to hear just like from the local girls like growing up who probably at one point or another like dreamed of going to the U. So it's just funny to see the developments of that. But yeah, I was quick to hop on the anti-Gopher train.
We may have already gotten the answer to this question. No, maybe not. Where you will possibly be headed for the NCAA tournament. And for anyone that wants a breakdown of this, if you go to DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider, I got bracketology up with a couple different scenarios based on where everything stands with the pairwise right now. So 3 possible locations: Columbus, Ohio, Madison, Wisconsin, or, and this is a real long shot, I don't want to get any of your family's hopes up here, but out east to Colgate or Clarkson. Mm-hmm. Who are you starting, benching, and cutting? Columbus, Madison, or out east?
I would start out east just because it would be fun to experience something new. I mean, we've played Colgate already this year, but it's always fun to experience new ranks, and the travel of it all really makes it feel like it's the NCAA tournament. It's not just a conference game. But then I would bench Madison, Wisconsin, and cut Columbus again, just because like I said, I love playing in Le Bon. And, if we were flying to go somewhere, I would prefer it to be somewhere we haven't been a million times in Columbus. But again,
Chance to mix it up here a little bit.
The Buckeyes are fun to play against. They really always bring the heat, and it's a fast track meet of a game. So there's no beef there. It's just a matter of having to pick.
First round NCAA tournament opponent. And again, these are the three possible. These are the three most likely that I'm seeing at this point. Penn State, Northeastern, and UConn.
Start Northeastern.
I was going to say, at this point with the playoff rivalry, they might be right up there with the Buckeyes, Gophers, and Badgers.
Mm-hmm. Bench UConn, cut Penn State.
Cut Penn State?
Yeah, I would say cut Penn State just because we've played them before, and I do like to experience new things, and UConn has been having a great year, and it'd be fun to play against a team like that, but I'm starting Northeastern more so just because of that history, and also, like, at one point, I really wanted to go there.
Okay.
And, yeah, so it'd just be fun, and, when we had played Northeastern, I wasn't playing at that time. So it would be fun to have that experience and play against a lot of girls I grew up playing with too. So I think that would just be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think Olivia Wallin, I believe on the podcast, she was not in favor, Zach, I remember, of playing Penn State, playing her former teammates again.
Yeah, I think she said if she had to, obviously, she would get up for it. But if she had to pick, it would be tough. But she was on that team, so a little bit different for you, where you're playing against former teammates in high school in the selects. So
yeah, she didn't. I don't think she wants to maybe knock out her former Nittany Lions teammates. But that's the only team that's that's actually a legit. They clinched they won the College Hockey America Championship. So Penn State's in. That is a possibility. Olivia, the only transfer who has not played her former team yet this year. Let's go with UMD jerseys next. I feel like this is another hot topic. White, yellow, and maroon.
First of all, Coach, if you're listening, I know it's gold, not yellow.
Sorry.
I think you made that. I think you said that last time.
I said that before too. Yeah, I think I screwed that up. White, gold, maroon.
This is so hard. I am a big fan of the maroons. But I'm also a huge fan of gold. I love all of our jerseys, honestly. I think though, like if I were to cut one, I would cut the whites. And then we've been wearing gold so much recently and having success in it, so that's good. We do have two maroons. I really like them both. So I think because there's two maroons, I'm going to start maroon and bench gold.
I think we've asked this before, but I forget the answer. Who picks the uniforms every night?
I'm pretty sure Coach has the most say in it. We also, I think, rely on our Mark, our hockey ops and equipment guy, to do that. But I'm pretty sure Coach has the most say there.
Coach has the first say, and then Mark confirms whether what she wants is the person washing and making sure the jerseys are ready and stitched up and everything gets probably the final stamp there.
Yeah.
Okay, last one to close it out. PWHL team from the states you've lived in: Minnesota, Boston, New York.
I'm going to start Boston, bench Minnesota, and then cut New York.
Do you have a reason for that? Is it because of who's former teammates on any of these teams, or?
I would say just a little bit of everything. We have former teammates on all three of them. So, not too much sway in that department because I support all of them. I like the greens in the Boston. It's cool that they're kind of in parallel with like the Celtics there. And I like the purples too. I don't know how popular the purples are amongst people, but I like them. I'm not a huge fan of the teal looking color for New York. So that was an influence as well.
All right. We'll wrap it up there. So MK, you can get ready for a couple weeks of postseason hockey.
Thank you for having me.
You can find the Bulldog Insider podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, subscribe, and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. Subscribe to gain access to our coverage all season long, and that's where I'm going to have some bracketology for people that want to know, get an idea of maybe where the Bulldogs are heading in the NCAA tournament and who they are going to play. And we'll also have coverage, of course, this weekend from the WCHA Final Faceoff in Minneapolis. Zach, what's the My 9 schedule look like here as the regular season for the men comes to a close against St. Cloud?
Yeah, we'll have both games of the men's series this weekend, 7 o'clock Friday, 6 o'clock Saturday against the Huskies. And then we'll see where the men's team ends up for the first round of the playoffs. We know they won't be at home. So if they're somewhere where maybe we can pick up the playoff series, we'll talk about that when we know the opponent. And then the women, I don't think those games are on TV, but I know they're on Big Ten Plus. Do you know? Maybe the championship game is on actual TV, but I don't know the answer to that. I know they're not on My 9, so Big Ten Plus, 1 o'clock Friday, and then if they win, hopefully 2 o'clock Saturday for the women.
Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their support of the Bulldog Insider podcast, and thanks to all of you for listening. We'll catch you next week.